Tom Cruise is the movies. At least, that's what he wants you to believe. He spent decades crafting this image of himself as Hollywood's ultimate movie star. Running, doing death-defying stunts. And to be fair, it's kind of hard to argue with. Whatever you think of the guy, his love for movie making is undeniable. But here's the thing. Some people aren't convinced Cruise has ever actually watched a movie in his life. Sounds ridiculous, right? Maybe. But let's just look at the facts. He's always saying, "I love movies." He once told Jimmy Fallon he watches a movie every single day. But how many times has Tom Cruise actually walked into a theater, bought a ticket, and sat down to watch a movie like the rest of us? Well, from what we can tell, only 5 times. 5 movies he's actually paid to see, at least if we take his word for it. So, back in 2001, Tom Cruise is doing an interview with Larry King, and King asks him if he still actually buys movie tickets like a regular person. Cruise says he does. King doesn't believe him for a second. So Cruise drops a title, Spy Game. He says he went to see it just the other night. Now, do I buy the idea of Cruise standing in line, paying for a ticket, squeezing into a crowded theater with some guy crunching popcorn in his ear? Maybe. It's possible he wanted to support his Top Gun director Tony Scott, or maybe he was there for Brad Pitt, although considering Pitt supposedly hated him on Interview with the Vampire, that's interesting. Either way, Cruise's ticket money didn't exactly help this one. The film went through a mess of budget problems before it even started shooting. It was supposed to be this smaller spy thriller, then Tony Scott took over, Brad Pitt joined, and suddenly the budget exploded. At one point, Scott wanted a helicopter shot for a rooftop scene. The studio said no, so Scott paid for it himself. By the time they were done, Spy Game had racked up $115 million in costs. It made $143 million, so it wasn't a complete disaster, but close. Same interview, and King asked Cruise if he took the kids to see Harry Potter. Cruise says he did, and that's about all we get. No clue what he actually thought of the movie, because let's be real, he wasn't about to sit there and do a full review for Larry King Live, and Cruise has never really shown much interest in fantasy outside of Legend, so maybe this was just one for the kids. Or maybe he's secretly a massive Harry Potter fan and just doesn't talk about it. Who knows? Jump ahead to 2023, and this time Cruise isn't casually mentioning movies in interviews. He's posting them himself. He put up a picture on Instagram of him and Mission Impossible director Christopher McQuarrie standing in front of movie posters. And one of the movies they went to see was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Cruise may have paid to see it, but not a whole lot of other people did. This was one of the biggest box office bombs of the year. The budget was already insane, around $300 million before marketing. Just to break even, this thing needed to make $600 million worldwide. It didn't even come close. Disney lost about $143 million on it. Harrison Ford, though, didn't seem too bothered. He said in an interview, "Shit happens." He just wanted to give Indy one last ride and was happy he got to do it. "I wanted one more chance to pick him up and shake the dust off his ass and stick him out there, bereft of some of his vigor to see what happened. I'm still happy I made that movie." As for Cruise, he had nothing but love. He put out a statement congratulating Ford on 40 years of Indiana Jones and creating one of the most iconic characters in cinema history. "You have given us countless hours of joy." When Cruise posted that Instagram picture hyping up summer movies, Oppenheimer was one of the films he made a point to highlight. He and Christopher McQuarrie had their tickets, ready to see it on opening weekend. Now, does Cruise love Christopher Nolan's work? Maybe. He did go out of his way to see Tenet in theaters back in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, when Hollywood was on life support and cinemas were shutting down left and right. Nolan was convinced he could single-handedly save theaters by releasing Tenet in the middle of all that. And yeah, the movie pulled in $365 million, which was impressive given the circumstances, but still ended up being a financial mess. Cruise, though, made a huge deal about going to see it, even filmed himself in a mask, sitting in the audience, clapping like a madman. So maybe he just wanted to support another Nolan film. Or maybe Oppenheimer was exactly the kind of movie Cruise wanted in theaters. Something big, something that packed out cinemas. Because when movies are doing well, that's good for Tom Cruise. And Cruise didn't stop there. He also confirmed that the next day he was seeing another major release. And if you were even remotely aware of pop culture in summer 2023, you know what that movie was. That's right. The last movie we can officially confirm Tom Cruise paid to see is Barbie. The whole Barbenheimer thing was an absolute phenomenon. Two completely different movies releasing on the same day, and instead of competing, they just fed off each other. People made entire events out of it. Double features, pink outfits, memes everywhere. It was the kind of moment Hollywood dreams about. Now, did all of this help Cruise? Not really. If anything, Barbenheimer steamrolled his own movie Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, and that had to sting. Cruise had spent years crafting this massive, globe-trotting action spectacle. It cost almost $300 million to make, and while it got great reviews and pulled in $571 million, it still ended up being labeled a disappointment because of its huge budget and tough competition. And Oppenheimer getting most of the IMAX screens that Cruise wanted for Mission Impossible? Yeah, that probably didn't sit well with him either. But Cruise still played along. He posted about Barbie, hyped up Oppenheimer, smiled through it all. And to be fair, Gerwig and Robbie returned the favor. They were even pictured with tickets to Oppenheimer, Indiana Jones, and Mission Impossible, just to keep the goodwill going. So yeah, maybe this was all just a big PR stunt. But when it comes to Cruise, there's one thing that's absolutely true. He's dead serious about keeping theaters alive. As he put it, I grew up seeing movies on the big screen. That's how I make them. It's immersive, and to have that as a community and an industry, it's important.